The Fault in Our Stars is about two young people named Hazel and Augustus who meet at a support group for children with cancer, and they come to share a love of this book that doesn't exist called An Imperial Affliction by Peter Van Houten, and they want to meet the book's author so that he can tell them what happens after the end of that book, which is them seeking a kind of sequel, I guess. And they want to find him in Amsterdam, and it's really the story of their love together and their relationship.
You worked in a children's hospital. Did that inspire you to write about that subject?
Yeah, the kids that I met at the children's hospital who were sick, whether it was with cancer or another disease, were very different from the kids I was reading about in those stories. They were funny, and they were sarcastic, and they were angry, and they weren't wise beyond their years in the way that those characters often are. And so I wanted to try to reflect the reality as I saw it, as I experienced it with the young people I knew.
One of your majors at university was religious studies. Did it help to write a book about those youngsters who are seriously sick?
Well, I think it probably helped me personally on my own journey toward sort of understanding or reconciling myself to the reality of the world we see. It can be very difficult to try to believe that there is any kind of plan in this world when you encounter the horrible things that happen to human beings seemingly randomly. And so I guess I wrote the book partly as a personal response to those experiences, but also partly as a way of trying to think through not just religious but also secular ways that people approach these questions of suffering.
At the beginning of the novel, you point out that the story is a fictional one. Does that work pretending you from questions about a potential link to your own life?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do. Of course, it doesn't matter. I mean, in the we live in a very personality-driven age, and also, like, I have gone to great lengths to reveal my personal life to a large audience on the internet. So it's a bit hypocritical of me to then put down on the first page of a novel that no one should read my life into the novel because I've given them so much of my life to read into it. So it's not fair of me, but I felt like I should do it anyway in the hopes that the book could be read as a book and not just as sort of veiled autobiography.
I saw the German issue of your book is recommended for children from 13 onwards.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Is it different in the United States?
No, it's about the same. I guess 14 onwards. So yeah, similar. That's a big year, though.
Do you remember what you read at this age?
Yeah, at 13, 14, I was reading The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, a lot of Kurt Vonnegut novels. I think that was the year I read Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, which was a hugely important book to me. But Salinger was probably the biggest influence on my life at that time, I guess.
You are the person with the biggest number of friends and followers on the internet I ever met. Downside is that it's very time consuming, isn't it? Don't you get tired of it sometimes?
Well, I do get tired of the internet, I guess, but like the bigger concern for me is whether it feels like work. And it doesn't feel like work, it just feels like part of my life. I've been on the internet since I was 14 or 15 years old, and it never felt like a job when I was a teenager, and it doesn't feel like a job now. It just feels like part of the conversation that I want to have with people. So part of that conversation I want to have through fiction, and I feel very lucky to be able to do that and to write novels and to have those kinds of quiet, contemplative conversations that occur over hundreds of pages. But I also like to have the quick exchanges that the internet can provide.
You're very close with your brother. What impact does he have on your work?
Well, I don't know. All my books have only children in them, so my brother always says that I never put brothers in my books to hurt his feelings. So he would say that's his central impact in my work. But my brother is an extremely empathetic, compassionate, thoughtful person who tries very hard to live by his values, and I admire that a lot. I'm not like that, unfortunately, or not as much as I'd like to be. And so when I think about heroism, I often think about my brother's personal qualities because I really look up to him in that respect.
So you have been reviewing 100 books at least, right?
Oh yeah.
Was it helpful to develop your own style?
Yeah, it was very helpful to be a book reviewer and also just to read very, very widely. Not just great books, but also terrible ones. Can help a writer, I think, learn a lot about, how to use words to tell a story, how to create images in people's minds using only text. So I read a lot of great books in those years when I was working as a book reviewer. I also read a lot of really bad books. But in the bad books, in some ways, are more helpful because you can see the strings. If it's like a puppet, you can see the strings of the puppet, so you understand the mechanics of how the story is working a little bit better, and it's a little bit easier to cheat off of, I guess. So yeah, it was really important to me.
You lived in Chicago and New York. Then you moved back to Indianapolis. Were you homesick?
No, not at all. My wife is a curator of contemporary art, and so she works in art museums, and that's why we lived in Chicago, and then why we lived in New York, and then she got a very good job at the excellent museum in Indianapolis, and so we felt that we should go. I don't have any family there anymore, so I didn't have much of a connection to Indianapolis, but I like it there very much, and I'm very glad that we ended up there. It's a really American city, and that's good for an American writer. I think if you live in New York, you can think that New York is America, which really isn't. America is all of the other cities, I think. So it's very good for me, and I like it there. Plus, my house is cheap.
You lived in Amsterdam for 2 months. I think. Could you imagine living in Europe, where your books are not considered to be offensive, and where people are more relaxed with religion? Yeah,
it would be great. I mean, my wife and I often talk about living in Europe, and certainly we have a young son, and we would love for him to have an EU passport. I think it will be difficult with an American passport for the next generation, so I don't think that it will. I think it could be harder to travel and harder to live other places. So we do think about it. I don't speak any language other than English, and I'm very bad at learning languages. And I don't really. I guess we could live in the UK, but we would probably want to live on the continent in Holland or in Germany. But it's hard when you don't speak the language. So you can never quite communicate as clearly as you want to.
But we are getting better here with English.
Yeah, no, I mean, both in Germany and in the Netherlands, people speak excellent English. But when you are with your friends or you're watching football, the language of your imagination is always your first language. And so I think, until I get to a point where I can watch a football match with friends and understand what they're talking about in moments of great passion, then I can't have like a friendship that goes all the way deep.
I see the point. What is coming next? Again, a young adult novel, or do you feel that you are growing out of this genre?
I don't feel like I'm growing out of it, really. I mean, I'll definitely write a young adult novel next. I don't think that I'll ever write anything else. I don't really have any interest in other kinds of books. I love reading very broadly, and I read all kinds of books, but I'm not really interested in writing anything other than the books I currently write, so I think I'll just keep at it.